You don't wake up. You resurface. From a night of sweating, twisting, and trying not to roll off the edge of a straw mattress that's thinner than your sense of safety. The air smells like damp wool, goat hair, and something vaguely sour that may or may not be your own feet. You're in Rome, not the romanticized postcard version with marbled columns and toga parties. No, this is the noisy, smelly, cramped first century Rome. And you're not an emperor. You're a regular Roman, a plebeian, which is just a fancy way of saying, welcome to the bottom of the societal sponge. Your eyes open to a grayish light leaking through a dusty curtain. Outside, carts rattle over cobblestones. Somewhere nearby, a baby cries with a kind of urgency that suggests both hunger and existential dread. But you're not thinking about any of that. You're thinking about your guts. Something's stirring, deep in the bowel region. A slow, ominous churning that suggests today's breakfast won't be happening before a much more immediate mission. Evacuation. You stumble up. Your tunic is wrinkled, your sandals are missing, and there's a crust of something near your mouth. Let's not investigate. You head outside. The hallway is dark and narrow, just wide enough for you and your shame. Your neighbor Gaius passes you, burping loudly and patting his stomach. He smells like pickled fish and self-satisfaction. He knows where you're going. Everyone does. Because in Rome, toilet time is social time. You walk to the latrine, not your latrine, the latrine. Shared, public, occasionally cursed, built for dozens, cleaned by no one, blessed by the gods only if you make the right offering beforehand, and even then, they might just laugh. It's a long stone bench with a row of holes, evenly spaced like an invitation to humiliation. No stalls, no doors, no occupied signs, just cold, open holes and eye contact you'll regret for weeks. You sit and instantly regret every life choice that led you here. Beneath the bench, a channel of running water trickles by, meant to carry away the evidence. At your feet, another smaller trough filled with vinegar water, and resting inside it, the Roman legend, the horror whispered across centuries, the tersorium, a stick with a sponge that everyone uses. Let that sink in. You glance at it, then at the man beside you. He's humming, cheerful. He nods at you as if to say, your turn, friend. You swallow something that might be your pride. Now let's pause for a moment. Modern you, yes, the version with scented toilet paper and Bluetooth speakers in the bathroom, might be screaming internally. Why didn't they have something better, you wonder? Leaves? Rags? Literally anything else? Well, the rich did. They had wool or imported linen or servants with questionable job descriptions. But you get vinegar sponge on a stick. If you're lucky, you reach for it. It's dripping, it's warm, someone just used it. You tell yourself vinegar is disinfectant. You try not to breathe. You do what you must. And when you're done, you rinse it in the trough. Because hygiene is, well, relative. You stand, adjust your tunic, and shuffle out past the others. Some reading graffiti scratched into the walls, others still mid-conversation about gladiators, debt, or which god to blame for the diarrhea outbreak on the third floor. As you leave, you spot a small shrine with a carved face, the Cloacina, goddess of the sewer. You nod to her. Because down here, a little divine help goes a long way. Back in your apartment, you flop onto a wooden stool and stare at the wall. The day has barely begun. You've already touched a community sponge with your bare hand, and yet, in some strange, shame-twisted way, you feel connected to history, to your neighbors, to the great gritty Roman Empire that somehow managed to conquer the world with shared hygiene tools. and very low standards. You sigh. Your stomach rumbles again. Time for breakfast. But that, dear friend, is another journey entirely. Perfect. Let's march straight into the next absurdity of ancient life. You survived the latrine. You earned a medal. Too bad medals don't exist for intestinal bravery. Now you sit at a wobbly wooden table, your tunic still a bit damp in all the wrong places, staring at your morning reward. A chunk of bread so hard it could double as a roof tile, and a clay bowl with a suspiciously oily stain. The ghost of a condiment long since absorbed into the pottery. Your stomach is confused. It craves comfort, warmth, maybe a soft-boiled egg, a splash of honey, a fresh fruit perhaps. Not in this timeline. Welcome to the Roman breakfast, also known as the ientaculum, a meal so uninspired it might actually make you nostalgic for that shared toilet sponge. There's bread. Always bread. But this isn't the fluffy bakery stuff of your modern dreams. No. This is the panis militaris, the military-style loaf designed to last longer than some emperors. It's dense, dry, and baked with whatever flour survived the grain merchant's mood swings. It crumbles like sandstone and chews like old sandals. Sometimes it comes with weevils for extra protein. Sometimes it doesn't, which is actually worse, because that means even the bugs refuse to eat it. Beside it sits a small bowl of olive paste. Rancid? Possibly. But after yesterday's garum shipment spilled all over the docks, you're just grateful it doesn't smell like fermented mackerel. Speaking of which, there it is. The garum, the Romans' holy grail of flavor. A sauce made from fish guts, salt, and the loving kiss of thyme. Think of it as soy sauce, if soy sauce were made by Poseidon's hungriest interns and stored in the sun for weeks. You drizzle a few drops over your bread. It seeps in slowly, giving your breakfast a taste somewhere between anchovy tears and ocean regret. You chew, and chew, and chew. Your jaw starts to ache. You wonder if this is what Roman dentists do. Just wait for patients to break teeth on breakfast, and then hand them pliers and a prayer. Outside your window, a rooster crows. Late, as always. A neighbor shouts something about overdue taxes. You try to focus on the one sweet thing you have. A fig. Slightly bruised, possibly stolen, definitely divine. It melts on your tongue like a sticky apology from the gods. For a moment, you forgive them for everything. Then your little brother walks in, snatches your fig, and runs off laughing. Welcome to family life. You sip water from a clay jug. It tastes acceptable. That means it was probably boiled, or at least not drawn from the cursed side of the aqueduct. Water in Rome is a gamble. The pipes are made of lead, and while no one knows the word neurotoxin, the side effects speak for themselves. You lean back. The bread's lodged somewhere between your molars and your spirit. But you're fueled. Kind of. Time to face the day, the noise, the dust, the crowds, and whatever punishment the gods have planned for this particular Tuesday. But before you go, you tuck the remaining bread into your belt, just in case. It might come in handy later, as a snack, a weapon, or emergency building material. It's barely past sunrise, and already the city groans like a tired mule. The streets outside your insula, Rome's charmingly flammable apartment blocks, are alive with shouting, stomping, and the clatter of cartwheels grinding over uneven stones. Dust clouds dance like ghosts, kicked up by sandal-clad feet. You are not rich. You are not powerful. You are, to put it politely, expendable. So today, like every day, you work. The job? Whatever pays enough to keep you in stale bread and not dead. If you're lucky, you're a mosaic layer, piecing together floor art for the villas of men who'll never learn your name. You spend hours bent over, squinting at tiny stones, inhaling mortar fumes, and praying no one drops a column on your head. If you're unlucky, and today you're a manual laborer at the forum, unloading sacks of grain from wagons so overloaded they creak like dying trees. Each sack is heavier than your pride. You grunt, lift, stumble, and drop it into a pile that already smells like rat pee and broken dreams. The sun climbs higher. Your tunic sticks to your back like wet parchment. Sweat drips down your neck into places the tersorium never reached. You wipe your brow on your forearm and instantly regret it. That wasn't sweat. That was bird crap. From Jupiter's sky chickens. Someone yells for more help near the fountain. A cistern broke again, waters flooding the road, mixing with horse dung and olive brine. You dodge a merchant pushing a cart of clay pots, who screams obscenities about your mother and a goat. Standard customer service. Lunch? You don't get lunch. You get a dry fig someone dropped, and you eat it fast before the mice unionize. A passing senator, carried by slaves in a litter, tosses a coin toward the crowd. It hits a child in the face. Everyone cheers. Generosity, they cry, while the child cries too, possibly from concussion. This is Rome. The rich ride, the poor sweat. And you survive, just barely. By mid-afternoon, your legs tremble. Your back screams. Your soul's considering an early retirement to the underworld. But you keep going because you must. Because rent is due. Because bread doesn't grow on laurel wreaths. Because the landlord doesn't accept excuses. Only sesterces. Or occasionally, your sister. And gods help you if you're a woman working. That means spinning wool until your fingers bleed, or hauling water jars heavier than your body, all while dodging catcalls, pickpockets, and the creeping hand of your neighbor's husband. But even the miserable get a break eventually. A horn blows. Somewhere, a priest mutters something to Jupiter. And just like that, shift's over. Or at least your spine gives out before the sun does. You stagger home, covered in sweat, dust, and something that may have once been fruit. Your hands shake, your sandals are falling apart, and your dignity, it's somewhere under that last sack of grain, crushed beneath the weight of empire. But hey, at least tomorrow's another chance to maybe not die. Maybe. Let's cleanse your aching body and soul. Or at least stew it in lukewarm people soup. You smell like 12 hours of regret. Your back is a knot. Your feet feel like you walked to Gaul and back. And your armpits? They're a biohazard. So, like any self-respecting Roman without a personal slave or marble tub, you head to the one place that promises relief, scandal, and maybe a foot massage, the public baths. Bathing for Romans isn't just about hygiene. It's about theater. It's where deals are made, lovers are spotted, enemies are insulted, and old men compare scars they definitely didn't get from just falling off a chariot. You approach the Thermae, Rome's version of a social media platform, just with more nudity and fewer filters. The entrance is grand, the mosaics glittering with tiny fish and naked gods doing things that probably require parental guidance. You pay a small fee, or sneak in behind a distracted senator's entourage, and the transformation begins. First stop, the apoditerium, the changing room, a sweaty cave of sandals, gossip, and stolen tunics. You undress, stuff your belongings into a wall cubby, and shoot a prayer to Mercury that no one steals your only decent belt. Then it's into the tepidarium, the warm room. Your pores sigh. The heat wraps around you like a forgiving aunt who smells faintly of basil and charcoal. You sit. You sweat. You eavesdrop. The man beside you just confessed to losing 3 slaves in a dice game. The woman across the room is loudly speculating about the governor's new mistress. who might also be his cousin or his horse trainer. It's unclear. You move on to the caldarium, the hot room. Steam slaps you in the face. Your lungs protest. Your skin turns pink. You feel your sins melt off your bones like old wax. Some guy is scrubbing his back with a strigil, a curved metal tool that looks like something a dentist would fear. You try it. It works. Maybe too well. You're now missing a mole and half your patience. Eventually, you brave the plunge into the frigidarium, the cold bath. It's like jumping into a mountain stream filled with Roman curses. You gasp. You shrink in places you didn't know could shrink, but you're clean and alert and slightly reborn. Someone offers you oil. You accept. They pour it on your shoulders and scrape it off with another strigil. It's oddly intimate. You don't make eye contact. Finally, you recline in the open courtyard, warm, relaxed, and probably lice-free for the next 5 hours. A flute plays in the distance. Children splash in a side pool. Somewhere, someone's being pickpocketed. But not you. This time, you made it. The bath has baptized you in sweat, gossip, and communal weirdness. And for one fleeting moment, you feel, dare we say it, good. But Rome never lets you relax for long, because now it's time for dinner. And dinner gets political. As the sun slips behind the skyline of domes, columns, and rising smoke, you find yourself preparing for cena, the main Roman meal of the day. Except preparing might be generous. You're mostly just hoping you get invited somewhere that serves more than bread dust and boiled turnip. If you're poor, your dinner is quick, silent, and practical. A reheated bean stew, maybe some porridge, and a few olives that may or may not be fermented beyond forgiveness. You sit on a crate, you eat with your fingers, you try not to cry. But tonight, you've somehow secured an invitation to a wealthy patron's cena. Maybe you did him a favor. Maybe you owe him a favor. Maybe he just needed one more body to make the room feel full. Whatever the reason, you're going. You arrive at his domus, freshly bathed and deeply underdressed. The house smells of incense, roasted meat, and barely concealed ambition. Slaves rush by with trays of grapes and face towels. A eunuch offers you wine before you've even taken off your sandals. You drink. It's sour. It's strong. It's already going to your head. The triclinium, the dining room, is arranged with 3 reclining couches. That's right. You eat lying down, propped on one elbow like a seductive lizard. It's awkward, unnatural, and gives you heartburn in places you didn't know had valves. The cena begins with the gustaccio, appetizers, sea urchins, dormice stuffed with pine nuts, oysters still gasping. You smile, chew, and pray your stomach doesn't stage a rebellion. Your host watches you with a grin too wide to be casual. Next, the prima mensa, the main course. Roast boar glazed in honey. Peacocks with their feathers reattached after cooking, like edible taxidermy. A whole fish staring at you with an expression that says, "I died for this?" Conversation flows like the wine, messy, loud, and full of politics. People argue over theater, war, and whether a certain senator's limp is divine punishment or just gout. Someone recites bad poetry. Someone else quotes Homer and mispronounces half the lines. No one cares. Then comes the secunda mensa, dessert. Figs, dates, cakes, and more wine. Always more wine. You drink until your tongue feels like velvet and your hearing turns into an abstract painting. And finally, the vomitorium. Not a room, a practice. Not everyone uses it, but some do. Because when you eat this much and drink this much and want to keep going, well, something's gotta give. Discreetly, of course, behind a curtain, with a feather or a finger. You decline, politely, proudly. You're poor, not pathetic. As the party spirals into laughter, music, and passive-aggressive haikus, you recline farther back and stare at the painted ceiling. Scenes of gods seducing mortals, heroes battling monsters, and somewhere in the corner, a pig in a toga. Maybe it's symbolic, maybe you're just very drunk. Either way, it's bedtime, which in Rome is another kind of ordeal. You stumble home under a sky of smoky stars, the kind of night where the moon glows like a chipped coin. Your feet ache, your stomach is a battlefield, and the wine in your head has started redecorating your balance. Sleep should be easy, but this is Rome, and Rome does not sleep. It merely changes its form of madness. You reach your insula, your apartment building, a creaking, leaning, multi-story fire hazard that makes modern elevators look like divine miracles. Your room is on the 4th floor. That's the cheap part. The rich live near the bottom, the poor live high, where the walls are thinner, the stairs are steeper, and the odds of falling through the floorboards increase exponentially. You climb, slowly, carefully. At one point, you pass a couple fighting over a chicken and a child asleep in a drawer. Finally, you arrive. Your room is dark, tiny, and slightly damp. Not from rain, but from the collective breath of 100 humans packed like sardines in the levels below you. You collapse onto your bed. Let's rephrase that. You collapse onto a wooden frame stuffed with straw, old cloth, and possibly a rat. It smells like feet and unresolved trauma. The blanket is scratchy. The pillow is flat. But you're too tired to care, almost, because just as your eyes start to close, someone shouts outside. Drunken laughter follows. A cart crashes into a column. Dogs bark. A baby cries. A flute plays somewhere, badly. Then silence. Then a scream. Normal. You shift, scratch. Your skin itches. Fleas. Lice. Maybe both. You feel something crawling, but it might be anxiety in physical form. You try to sleep on your side, on your back, curled like a dying shrimp. Nothing helps. Your mind wanders to tomorrow's work, to debts unpaid, to whether your bread will go moldy or just become a weapon again. You count breaths, then curses, then the holes in your ceiling. Eventually, your body gives in before your brain does. You drift into sleep not like a feather, but like a sack of bricks thrown from a balcony. Heavy, uncertain, brief. And outside, Rome continues, breathing, shouting, groaning, like a giant beast that never truly rests. At least you made it through another day. Sort of. You wake up with a headache, a cough, and a suspicious boil on your thigh that seems to be developing its own personality. Congratulations. You are now officially Roman and sick. What do? If you're lucky, you visit a medicus, a Roman doctor. But let's set expectations. Most Roman doctors are trained by experience, rumor, and occasionally dissecting a dead gladiator in a back alley. Their knowledge is a spicy stew of Greek theory, folk wisdom, and a deep belief in balancing your bodily fluids. Fluids, yes? According to the humoral theory, your body is governed by 4 humors: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. If you're ill, it means these fluids are arguing. And the solution? Bleed you, or purge you, or rub something terrible on the affected area while chanting to Asclepius. That cough? Drink a concoction of vinegar, honey, and boiled mouse. That boil? Slap a poultice of crushed figs and goose fat. The headache? Trepanation? Drilling a hole in your skull to let the demons out. You laugh, then stop laughing when someone pulls out the drill. If you can't afford a medicus, there's always the healer woman down the alley who claims her mother was touched by Apollo and who smells like burnt sage and goat cheese. She gives you a charm to wear around your neck, a paste made of garlic and ash to rub on your chest, and tells you to avoid figs during full moons. You nod. What else can you do? But let's say your condition worsens. You've got a fever, your skin is yellow, your bowels have declared civil war. Time for divine help. You drag yourself to the temple of Aesculapius, Rome's god of healing. There you lie on a cold stone floor among dozens of other groaning pilgrims. You offer a small clay figurine of the body part that hurts. You dream. You wait. Maybe the god sends you a vision. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe it's just the fever talking. The priest tells you to drink holy water, fast for 3 days, and sleep under a statue. You do all of it. You get worse. The man beside you starts foaming at the mouth. The priest shrugs. The gods work in mysterious ways. Eventually, you recover, not because of anything they did, but because your body decided it wasn't your time, or because whatever parasite was in you finally got bored and left. Either way, you live. For now. And you wear the charm. You avoid figs. You say a quick prayer to Aesculapius every time your stomach growls, just in case. In ancient Rome, gods are everywhere, literally. There's a god for your front door, a god for your pantry, a god for sneezing, and if you forget to thank them all before breakfast, good luck not being struck by lightning or waking up with boils in unpleasant places. You don't worship one god, you worship dozens. Some are majestic, like Jupiter, the sky father with thunder in one hand and ego in the other. Others are so specific it's almost suspicious. Cloacina, goddess of sewers. Forculus, god of doors. Cardia, goddess of door hinges. Yes, hinges. Your day begins with rituals. Tiny ones. You toss a pinch of salt into the hearth fire and whisper something about protection. You nod to the lairs, household spirits who guard your home like spectral grandparents. You touch the doorway as you leave, just in case Forculus is watching. Religion isn't private. It's civic. It's theatrical. And it's political. Temples loom over marketplaces. Processions block traffic. Sacrifices happen mid-festival with drums, flutes, and enough blood to make a butcher faint. A priest in a funny hat slits a goat's throat and reads the future in its liver. Good harvest, he declares. Everyone cheers. No one asks the goat. If something bad happens, a flood, a famine, a plague, it's your fault. Well, not you specifically. But someone, somewhere, angered the gods. Maybe they used the wrong incense. Maybe they sneezed during the wrong prayer. Maybe they insulted Mercury by forgetting to haggle. Superstition oozes through daily life. You avoid walking under arches during eclipses. You never say tomorrow out loud without touching iron. If a crow flies left to right, good. Right to left, stay home. Probably die. You carry amulets, phallic ones, everywhere. On necklaces, walls, even children's toys. Because Romans believed the sight of a magical penis could ward off evil. Nothing says divine protection like a bronze wind chime shaped like male anatomy. You also fear foreign cults, wild, emotional, loud. The followers of Isis, of Mithras, of that new sect whispering about a one god and refusing to bow to statues. Strange people, dangerous ideas. Keep your distance, and yet, you do all of it. The salt, the prayers, the sacrifices, the charms. Because the gods might not help you, but you definitely don't want them mad. And in Rome, fear is a kind of faith. You've seen the grandeur, temples, marble, gods, senators waving like bored peacocks. But Rome isn't just gold leaf and laurel crowns. It's also knives in alleys, bribes under tables, and justice served with a scream. Let's say, hypothetically, you're hungry. Not missed lunch, hungry. We're talking, haven't eaten in 2 days and that pigeon looks like dinner, hungry. So you steal a loaf of bread. Someone sees you. They shout. And suddenly, you're surrounded by angry citizens, an off-duty soldier, and a man who insists on quoting Cicero while pointing at your crusty prize. In Rome, justice isn't blind. It's theatrical. You're dragged to the forum, your tunic torn, your pride even worse. You don't get a lawyer, you get an audience, and maybe a magistrate who hasn't eaten yet either. Not ideal. Your options: a fine you can't pay, a beating you won't forget, or, if you're really unlucky, public punishment. The Romans love public punishment. It teaches lessons, it entertains, it keeps everyone scared enough to behave, or at least hide it better. Minor crimes: you might be whipped, in the forum, in front of your neighbor, your ex, and half the city's pigeons. Your back becomes a warning sign. Bigger crimes: branding, mutilation, exile, or being thrown off the Tarpeian Rock, a dramatic cliff specially reserved for traitors and people the Senate doesn't feel like debating. But the main event? The arena. If you're a slave, a foreigner, or just unlucky, and your crime offends the wrong person, congratulations. You're now gladiator fodder. Or worse, part of a theatrical execution where you dress as a mythological character and are devoured by animals while the crowd cheers and eats olives. Justice, Roman style. The rich, of course, often avoid all this. With the right bribe, a wink, or a well-timed poem, they escape punishment faster than a senator dodging responsibility. You learn fast. Keep your head down, your hands visible, and your alibis ready. Because in Rome, surviving the law is its own form of luck. It's dark now, not dim, not romantic, dark. The kind where you can't see your own hand unless it's holding a torch, and even then, the shadows crawl like gossip through an alley. You made it. You worked, you ate, you bathed, you dodged death by food, disease, law, and latrine. You whispered to gods. You scratched flea bites. You narrowly avoided being trampled by a chariot whose driver was drunk on both wine and self-importance. Now, you lie back on your straw mattress, the city still groaning beneath your window. Your room is quiet, relatively. A dog barks, a couple fights, someone belches, standard lullaby. You think about today, about the sponge, the bread, the screaming senator, the fish sauce that still lingers somewhere in your soul, about how you, a nothing special Roman citizen, survived another day in a city built to crush you beautifully. You feel tired, not the kind that a nap fixes, the kind that settles in your bones, but also, strangely, alive. Because somehow, even in a world without privacy, without comfort, without ibuprofen or deodorant or Wi-Fi, people laughed, they fell in love, they wrote poems, they gossiped, they told bad jokes. They cared about the weather, the stars, the price of garum. They were you are them. And suddenly, your own 21st century problems, the emails, the bills, the existential dread of Monday, feel just a bit softer. Because your toilet flushes, because your bed has springs, because your bread is edible and doesn't require dental insurance, because you can lie here, in the dark, listening to a story through tiny wires in your ears, clean, safe, alone, and yet deeply connected to 1,000 years of filthy, defiant, ridiculous human survival. So go ahead, breathe, let the ghosts of Rome fade, and maybe, just maybe, sleep.